The open mic session. Open mic session is designed to provide an opportunity to provide citizens an opportunity to express their views on matters of concern to the school committee. The sessions are not designed to encourage debate or lengthy exchange of views, but are to have the committee understand numerous points of view. The committee would appreciate speakers keeping their presentation to 3 minutes in order to accommodate as many people as time permits. The chair reserves the right to limit the number of speakers in the same topic to 3. All speakers must be at least 18 years of age or enrolled in high school in the Lynn Public Schools district and having discussed their views with a student government representative. The chair reserves the right to rule the speaker out of order if they feel that the speaker's comments are personal in nature. If a speaker's comments are directed at a school committee member or a member of school administration in attendance, that member, through the chair, may address the individual. The sessions will promptly commence 15 minutes prior to the start of the regular school committee meeting. Is there anyone wishing to speak at open mic? Anyone for open mic? Last call for open mic. Yep, just state your name and address, please.
Mackenzie Charles.
You can just have a seat because then the folks at home will hear you.
Speak in the mic.
Yeah.
Okay. How you doing? I'm Mackenzie Charles. I am a board member of the Lynn Rams and cheerleader and program. I'm the football director. I coach football at St. John's Prep, and I am a part of the behavioral management team at North Shore Academy, part of the consortium. It's a therapeutic school in Beverly, and I'm here to address. So we have 75 youth, Lynn youth, cheerleaders and football players. They earn the right to compete nationally in Florida, and I'm here to address the issue of them missing. They're going to be missing school, and I guess the absences aren't going to be accounted for, right? They're going to be unexcused absences, and for our children of our city, that actually a lot of them are doing really good work. We're penalizing them for earning the right to represent our city nationally, and I don't want that to deter their further schooling. Right, we have 12 12U teams, a cheerleading team and a football team, and a lot of those kids like to go to Lynn Tech or different programs like that, and to get that many absences on their report card, and then it's going to turn into D's for them, for students that are actually doing really well in school. I would hate to see that happen to those young people and their parents that are doing the right things. So I would love to support and reward the kids doing positive things in our community, and not deter them from doing those positive things because it's going to hurt them academically in their future. So that's why I'm here, to advocate for the young people of our community, to make sure they have opportunities like this and it's not detriment to their academics. We, as a program, we plan on making sure all the kids are held accountable for doing their work. And we're going to have study groups and times during this trip for them to do their schoolwork so they don't fall behind. But we just can't control them not being present in the class, but we can make sure that they're doing the schoolwork. And I'm just here to advocate for them so they're not penalized in those ways.
Thank you. Thank you, Mackenzie. Yep.
Thank you, Coach.
Anyone else wishing to speak at open mic? Anyone else for open mic? Last call for open mic. We will close open mic and move into the 18th regular meeting of the school committee. Roll call, please.
Member Castellanos?
Present.
Member Capola?
Present.
Member Dugan?
Present.
Member Gately? Absent. Member Magnolia?
Present.
Member Pena?
Present.
Mayor Nicholson?
Present. If you all please rise for a salute to the flag and remain standing for a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence in memory of Mildred Johnson, retired paraprofessional, passed away November 10th, 2023, and Judith Sellers, retired teacher, November 22nd, 2023. Thank you. Next item is the minutes.
Make a motion to accept the 17th regular meeting on November 9th, 2023, and accept the policy subcommittee meeting on November 14th, 2023. Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. School nurse election. It's a recommendation of the superintendent.
So the recommendation is to elect Marissa Duffy. And in your packets, you have a letter which has a start date of December 2023. So again, I put forth Marissa Duffy as one of our nurses for your consideration.
As well, the committee.
Make a motion to move the name forward of Marissa Duffy.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Member Castellanos?
Marissa Duffy.
Member Capola?
Marissa Duffy.
Member Dugan?
Marissa Duffy.
Member Magnolia?
Marissa Duffy.
Member Gately? Absent. Member Pena?
Marissa Duffy.
Mayor Nicholson?
Marissa Duffy. Supervisor of attendance.
Thank you, Mayor Nicholson. This evening, I am pleased to recommend Gianni Bird for the position of Supervisor of Attendance. Based on her previous performance and the skills displayed on an assigned performance task given to the two final candidates that were interviewed on November 15th. I'm confident that in her ability to excel in this role, she possesses a unique blend of skills, experiences, and qualities that make her an ideal candidate for this crucial position. Based on her performance task given, she exhibited the following key attributes and skills. Excellent communication. She excels in communication, maintaining open and transparent dialogue with both students and parents to address attendance-related concerns promptly and effectively. Her strategy during the performance task demonstrated this strength. In data management, she has a proven track record of adeptly managing attendance data, implementing systems to track and analyze attendance patterns, and to identify improvement. During the performance task, she effectively analyzed the data and provided and produced a letter to the fictitious judge to request a child requiring assistance case. Her problem-solving skills, she approaches attendance challenges with initiative-taking, solutions-oriented mindset, implementing strategies to mitigate absenteeism and improve overall attendance rates. She also includes a focus on collaboration with other departments and seeking outside and related services for students. In her professional accomplishments, she exemplifies a commitment to the betterment of Lynn Public Schools and her own growth by securing an undergraduate degree while she was working full-time and moving into a master's program for clinical mental health counseling. In the implementation of attendance initiatives, she played a key role in implementing targeted attendance improvement initiatives in her previous position as case manager, resulting in noticeable increase in overall attendance rates. And as far as collaboration is concerned, she shared how she actively collaborates with school staff, parents, and community partners to create a comprehensive approach to attendance management, ensuring a holistic and supportive environment for students. She's demonstrated an understanding of attendance regulations and compliance standards within K-12 education, ensuring adherence to state and LPS district policies. As a bilingual administrator, she presents herself as an asset to our school community. Additionally, Gianni, as an attendance case manager, has been employed with Lynn Public Schools for the past 9 years as a clerk. Her experience in the attendance department as a case manager began in July of 2022, where she has excelled in the role. And as a case manager, she also worked as a staunch advocate primarily with our undocumented minor population and demonstrate a keen awareness of their struggles. This past July, she took the role of interim supervisor of attendance, and again, she rose to the occasion with informed practice, advocacy skills, and the ability to thoughtfully navigate a supervisor role and responsibility. Her dedication to promoting attendance and her ability to foster a collaborative and supportive atmosphere make her an excellent fit for this vital role. I'm confident that Gianni would make a significant and positive impact on our school system as a supervisor of attendance. Therefore, I am recommending her for your consideration in this position.
What's the will of the committee?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Member Castellanos?
Gianni Bird.
Member Capola?
Gianni Bird.
Member Dugan?
Gianni Bird.
Member Gately?
Gianni Bird.
Member Magnolia?
Gianni Bird.
Member Pena?
Gianni Bird.
Mayor Nicholson?
Gianni Bird. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Johnny.
Next, we have a presentation on interdisciplinary learning.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Michelle Winslow, and I'm the Assistant Director for ELA and Reading at the elementary level. I'm here tonight to provide you with an update pertaining to the K-2 MyView implementation. Prior to the implementation of MyView in 3 through 5, a vast team of stakeholders took part in the evaluating and selection process, which is guided by DESI's 4-phase process of implementation and monitoring of the new curricular. Implementation is the fourth and final step in this process. For full implementation, this phase can span up to 4 years. During this time frame, continued targeted training of teachers, support staff, and administrators should be an ongoing process. The refinement of instruction to support standards-based teaching and learning should be the cornerstone. Continuous support and the monitoring of implementation and training should be evident throughout the 4-year journey. So we are obviously in that implementation and monitor phase. Just to share some data points, the commencement of the professional development was launched on August 31st. Since this date, approximately 317 educators have received training in one or more of the 10 full-day professional development sessions that have already been facilitated. Training has been conducted with classroom teachers, inclusion specialists, reading specialists, curriculum and instructional teachers, as well as district literacy coaches. The arc of the training follows a continuum similar in nature to that of the grade 3 through 5 implementation. Program activation provides educators with an overview and an opportunity to become familiar with the platform and its resources, including the assessment suite and the project-based inquiry, which culminates each unit. The next cycle of professional development is Tier 1 whole group, in which educators work with the intentionally developed routines, both for vocabulary acquisition and reading comprehension, all of which builds to evidence-based speaking and text responses. Tier 1 small group followed as the next cycle. During this session, educators work with differentiated resources to support Tier 1 application. Throughout the sessions, teachers have time to collaborate and dive deeper into the resources. These partnerships then work to identify the key components of each of the resources to then share with the group. These resources can then be shared and utilized for future teachings. Those are just some examples. Here's just a snapshot of feedback from one of the trainings. There are obvious trends in the data that need to be addressed. Referencing the point of wanting grade level to be represented in the training is vital, particularly if you're a primary grade teacher. Facilitation of a close read, for example, develops much differently than a close read in a grade 3 classroom. This was one of the trends that we saw through the surveys from the teachers of this particular training. Hence, materials should mentor grade level application so that the practices truly resonate with the participants and they can have in-the-moment takeaways for their own classroom application. As a participant myself in the training, I immediately reached out in conference with Savas consultants to ensure that grade-appropriate materials were utilized in upcoming sessions. During the initial cycles, building leaders are asked to send teachers working in specialized settings that they can take part in professional development with their colleagues, become familiar with the core's resource. Knowing that the work that they are charged with and the needs of their classrooms, a plan was devised to facilitate customized professional development, as you see here on the slide. Sessions for teachers were scheduled for 12-5 in K-2, followed by another session December 8th for grades 3 through 5. I would like to share with you at this moment a recent communication that I sent to building leaders explaining a decision to pause with this next cycle. Good afternoon. I wanted to provide you with an update regarding the professional development plan for next week. After meeting with Dr. Colella and the literacy consultants from Savas, who will be facilitating the training, it has been determined that at this point, we pause and look to reschedule the trainings, planned for December 5th and December 8th, so that the opportunity to deepen the understanding of the needs of our educators is allotted. In support of this work, a plan has been devised to ensure that professional development sessions are meaningful and purposeful for our educators and their students. A survey will be developed to garner the insights of our teachers to better understand their needs in those classrooms so that as it relates to the MyView resource. Another added step is to look to plan focus walks at several schools with the consultants so that they can also better evaluate the needs for the classrooms and provide an additional opportunity for teachers to share their insights thus far with the curriculum. I will be meeting with Dr. Colella next week to bring this plan to fruition, and I look forward to the work and to supporting our staff and students. After reading feedback that stemmed even from last year with some initial trainings, we really wanted to pause mindfully to ensure that we got exact, intricate, and integral data to truly support all classrooms, specifically classrooms in specialized settings. The resource, we wanted to go far deeper with our collection of data and feedback than just the session surveys. I look forward to collaborating, and again, I'm also excited to say after this communication was sent out, several teachers have reached out, excited to support this endeavor to ensure that we're really targeting the needs of each individual classroom. So next steps. A continued analysis of the feedback from all sessions will continue to ensure that the professional development is beneficial and meaningful for all of our educators. This feedback will be utilized to develop a final phase for this year of professional learning, not a final phase in its entirety. As we know, implementation can span multiple years. Then the remaining cycles pertaining to the course content are writing, project-based inquiry, and assessment. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions? Member Dugan.
So thank you, Michelle, for for that, and also I appreciate the thoughtfulness on pausing and everything there. Just a couple questions. So the anchor charts that you showed, were those teacher created, or those provided, or those were all created by teachers?
Yes,
Okay.
those were created by the teachers in the classroom.
Okay.
So part of the professional development is to be interactive with each other.
Right.
There are a lot of resources to the platform, and it takes time. It takes
Yeah,
time to learn it,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And we need to be able to, work through that together. So part of the work is to have people work in groups. They may take a particular resource and then collectively provide some type of feedback and output to the rest of the group on what are the key elements of this resource and how to utilize it best in your classroom.
Okay, great, thank you. And then you mentioned focus walks. I don't know how far you are along in the planning with that, but would that be something that teachers would volunteer for, or would that, so that
Oh,
teachers?
absolutely.
Okay, great.
Yes, no, absolutely. And that was something that the two consultants that we're working with actually have experience working in specialized settings in particular classrooms and have utilized the resource in doing so. So that's why we wanted to pause. We've been able to provide a lot of PD. We want to make sure teachers have what they need, but we also want to be mindful to now take a breath and think about getting additional information and, beyond those surveys that happen at the end of each session, to really reach out, get their thoughts, what are their insights, and what might they need next. So no, the focus walks would definitely be something that I would work in conjunction with Dr. Colella on, with the buildings, leaders, and with the teachers, and obviously on a voluntary basis.
Right, great. All right, thank you very much. Thank you for your hard work, appreciate it.
Member Gately, Member Magnolia. Go.
First of all, I want to apologize. I had a little car trouble, so it's all better and I'm here, first of all. Second of all, I am just so grateful to hear my view implementation, the update K-2 from you, that you're getting feedback from our teachers, that you're actually getting into the classroom to see what's going on, and to make sure that our teachers are getting all the resources that they need for our students to be successful, and I thank you for that. It just is really good to go through an election season without getting inundated from phone calls from teachers this year. And it was all because it was set up the right way. You started it the right way. They got their professional development. They went through the training. I've heard good things throughout my running around, but let's keep it up, and thank you, Michelle.
We will, and thank you. And again, as I said, beyond the preliminary data from those sessions, it's now important, as I said, to then us take our next steps and get in the classrooms, talk with the teachers, and get that really tangible data as well. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Magnolia.
Thank you very much for the presentation. So I actually wanted to talk a little bit about that rollout, because when we were talking about some of the curricular rollouts, I believe it was last academic year, we were talking about the process of assessing the efficacy of the rollouts. So we've got a whole process from DESE for assessing the curriculum, but internally we need an assessment for the efficacy of the rollouts. And I was wondering if, as a result of how well this rollout went, there were internal to your department some best practices guidelines for effective communication two-way between teachers and the curriculum departments to make sure that the rollout itself is meeting the needs of the folks who are implementing the curriculum.
No, thank you for that. We currently, I still look to also, we're still working with the Hill for Literacy as part of the Glean Grant, who are also in the schools supporting the Tier 1 instruction and the utilization of the platform. So yes, in retrospect, you always look back on a rollout and think, how could I still have done it better? In one of the sessions, we tried to keep it so that many classrooms could be utilized, but it was too crowded, or things of that nature. So wanting to streamline even the environment for teachers. And I do think with the implement and monitor process, we do need to create, as you say, an in-house plan strategically beyond DESE's. They say we go through the implementation phase, but what specifically does that look like? And it has to be very cognizant of the needs of our teachers and taking time to pause, allowing them to get used to the resources, but also getting and giving opportunities for them to tell us what could we have done differently or better, and how can we now pace it from here on out to ensure that they have a full cadre of what they need, because it's so important. So I'm not quite sure if I fully answered that, because it's definitely a process that we as a department are continuing to facilitate. I think we've done really well in utilizing DESE's implementation process and the evaluating and selecting process. But now with implementation, I think that we have to be strategic to be thinking about, okay, pre-implementation, pre-rollout, what are those best practices that we want to do? And explaining, maybe being even more transparent as to why we chose these days or why we chose these settings. So that we wanted to capitalize on the opportunity to maybe have a certain number of consultants so that we're able to get information to a wider range of educators at one time, so that they're ready and feeling ready to start getting in the classroom, even though it does take time to obviously become used to a program and a resource. So
Absolutely. And I do think that the inclusion of that qualitative feedback in here was useful, and I think that it needs to be cumulative. So if every rollout has qualitative data on the rollout itself, not just on the materials, I think that's going to give you the best information you have on I know it's kind of like a meta thing we're talking about here, but the efficacy of the rollout as opposed to the efficacy of the materials.
I completely agree with you, and holding consultants and vendors accountable
Yes.
for our needs, and not having them come in presenting what it is
they're
that-
used to.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. We really appreciate it.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Before we move into the next item, I just want to take a moment to introduce and welcome our student representative, Nevin Gonzalez-Kuhn. Welcome. We understand that Nevin is hold your applause, because Nevin is a senior at Effecto O'Leary, was accepted to North Shore Community College, plays second base, middle infield, because it says here shortstop, but you told me second base, so we'll just call it middle infield. For English high school baseball, and puts 100% effort into everything he does. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, next item is a discussion on attendance policy.
Yes, so just referring to our current attendance policy, which was last revised in 2019, and understanding that there are a number of students in our district that wish to have been participating in some community partner sports and cheerleading events and are able to compete at the national level, in not taking a step back and looking at our current policy, which says non-LPS sponsored, right, which this would be a non-LPS sponsored activity, are not considered for excused absences. We're not going to make any modifications, obviously, at this meeting on the policy. I am going to recommend that moving forward, that it goes to subcommittee and that we look at two things precisely. One is a review to consider restorative practices instead of a punitive approach to grade recovery opportunities, as well as evaluating any enrichment opportunities that may be non-LPS conducted, and what are those pre-vetted community partners that we are willing to work with, and say, these are things that we want our students in our community to participate in, and how do we approach that attendance practice. But at this time, in an administrative decision, as within the purview of the administrative office, I've decided to excuse those absences for those students that are participating. We do have a list of them, but this is not a decision that would, of course, be going forward looking at doing this every year. We need to reconvene and make some decisions about the entirety of the policy. Deputy Powers is going to share the communication that we've developed for principals and for parents in the community to explain what the process will look like. Deputy Powers?
Sure. And this also highlights that permission, but also highlights some concerns around that decision. In response to the request made by the West Lynn Popwana Football and Cheerleading Organization to excuse the student participants' absences during their travel to the competition held in Florida, the Lynn Public Schools agrees to code the absences as excused if this is the wish of the school committee. Since the absences will be coded as excused, the grades of the student participants will not be impacted. However, I want to remind us collectively that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education identifies all absences, regardless of excused or unexcused, in calculating chronic absenteeism. A record review of many of the students attending this field trip reveals that with this trip, they will be at or exceeding the chronic absenteeism rate for this school year. As we learned during the COVID pandemic, nothing replaces in-person instruction. As we are all very well aware, we are still recovering from the learning loss many of our students experienced, and for so many, their performance remains below grade level. In every school, our wellness teams invest many hours to address challenges in students attending school. Our principals, our superintendent, and the school committee are all held accountable to this data, which may impact the
identification of schools in need of corrective action. Attendance, or more specifically, chronic absenteeism, is an accountability measure. Please know that a decision to condone these absences comes with mixed sentiment. It is our collective community responsibility to limit barriers to every student attending school every day. All our students deserve to be well prepared for future success. Just to highlight the impact of this decision. At the middle school level, 23 students are participating in this trip. With 5 additional absences, 9 of these students will become chronically absent, and we are not even halfway through the school year. 4 of these 23 middle school students currently has an overall D- average. At the elementary level, 17 students are participating in this trip. With 5 additional absences, 9 of these students will become chronically absent, and again, we are not even halfway through the school year. We do not have grades for elementary students yet because we're not at the end of the first trimester. In closing, students attending school-sponsored field trips must meet attendance and grade level requirements to participate. Thank you.
Deputy Gores.
I'm in agreement with the attendance policy being taken up by the school committee sub-policy group. Specifically, the impact of the 4 unexcused absences resulting in a maximum of a D-. I'd really love for the committee to look at the equity in that policy, the impact of how this is or is not curbing absenteeism, the impact on courses, GPA, for this non-attendance, putting students at risk who may not have control due to economic reasons for being out of school.
So with that, we wanted to make sure that we made that statement. The absences, again, will be excused, but it is non-precedent setting, and we want to make sure that the committee is fully engaged in the full review of this attendance policy going forward.
Member Castellanos, Member Pena.
First of all, I want to thank everyone for taking part in this process. It was brought to our attention last week prior to Thanksgiving. I believe I've been able to see the commitment from the district, from the constituents here tonight, from West Lynn, from the Lynn Rams, as Coach Mack presented the discrepancies that they had from their perspective. So many different insights. Attendance is crucial. I definitely agree to making sure that we maintain those standards, as chronic absenteeism is a public issue. It's a public crisis right now, and we take that very seriously. And the partnership for our youth and LPS, I take that very seriously as well. The phone calls that I received earlier last week, it prompted a bigger discussion around the policy that was adopted back on May 30th, 2019. This was prior to the pandemic. This is a policy that we went through as a school committee at that time without having this type of forecast of 75 students going to national. So this situation at that moment obviously wasn't something we were prepared for, and I believe as a body for the school committee moving forward, Member Dugan, the folks on policy are fully committed, as well as athletics, and the understanding of student athletics is very clear, as I've heard from many coaches and folks who are mentoring these youth and young folks. Many of these students really are committed to being students as well. And that's something that I'm willing to put myself out there to make these conversations as I'm talking to people on Thanksgiving. And I just want to say thank you to all the coaches and all the families who were going 100 miles an hour to get their students' voices to the table. And I want to say thank you to Dr. Alvarez and to her whole team for listening, because there were phone calls, text messages, and communications that went back and forth that it's not always the prettiest, and we have to work these things through in full transparency. So, and this is a very, to get this to this point now, to the discussion piece on our agenda, I want to say thank you to the mayor as well, because Mayor Nicholson and Danye and everyone involved, everyone had to have a really transparent, open conversation, because there's three ways to all these different decisions that we would make, as you heard, around the importance of attendance. That being said, we do, for me, there is that discrepancy of social emotional learning that I see when students are, committed to a sport. And they did, when I look at credit recovery opportunities, there's a piece that Coach Mack spoke to that I think is very important. Like, there's discrepancies that we all have to hammer out, and we have to do it together, though. And there's proper channels to execute that. And I want to say thank you again for all my colleagues and everyone who took time to really expedite this, as to get this on the agenda, we had within 48 hours. And I know Attorney Greenspan was part of the conversation, many different people at the table to get this done tonight, to have this discussion. So I'm very grateful. And anytime these type of issues come across our table, it's very important to exercise bureaucracy and have those dialogue in public, the public setting. So just thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Castellanos. Member Pena.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone who was involved with the process, the Rams, and just to echo what my colleague, Member Castellanos said, from my perspective and my personal connection, I'm a parent, with three boys who participate in Westland Rams, and I know all the hard work that comes along with, with just practicing the every day, the commitment from the parents, the commitment from the students, and I know that for them to be involved, they have to have, decent grades and stuff, and I will attest and put myself out there that some, most of these kids work hard and they're committed to being good students also, and this is a unique situation. We normally don't get this all the time, and then we're at the times where we're at, where we're dealing with so many negative things going around. I think it's time that we do something positive and really focus and enlighten our children. I understand there are policy issues and there's things that we need to look at overall, especially with absenteeism. But I think we're in a unique situation where we need to really reward those children for something positive that's happening, which really is not happening too much nowadays. But stand by, decision. I want to thank the mayor and the superintendent, and I'm just so excited about that. So, but we really need to take a deep dive and look into our policy moving forward. Thank you.
Member Dugan.
Yeah, again, thank you to everybody that was involved. Being the chair of the policy subcommittee, I can tell you I will be committed to looking at this attendance policy and making sure we get it right. I just a quick question. Hearing all that information about the chronic absenteeism, obviously I want the children of Westland to experience this. I'm all for sports, and I understand the social emotional benefit of taking part in those things. I'm hoping we're communicating with the families of the consequence of this, if they are to go, and is there communication from Lynn Public Schools
The principals,
with these families?
that's
Yeah.
how this issue came to the table,
Okay.
because the principals have been communicating this to the families, and the families were not happy with the response.
Okay, all right. So, it is an issue, and I hope that the families of these children that are, experiencing these attendance issues do take this seriously. But all that being said, I do understand the importance of allowing this to happen and excusing these absences. So, but again, as the chair of the, policy subcommittee, I will be committed to getting this attendance policy correct. So, just wanted to get that out there.
Thank you, Member Dugan. Member Gately.
Well, thank you for coming. I didn't get to hear you speak because I was running late, Max, sorry. When a student works so hard that they succeed to a championship level, they should be patted on the back, and everything should be, let's go Rams, let's go down there and take that trophy. The background on this policy was that there was a time when we had more absences, and students would actually, in the high school level, would say, gee, it's fourth quarter. I've only taken 3 days off. I have 3 more days to take off. And then they would take off more days because that was the policy, and they could go to that amount. Just like we changed our policy to make it so that that they had to go to school and they didn't have these free days, like personal days. If you're working in the real world, you have your personal days. We should have exceptions. Exceptions we should add to our policies for when our students exceed, like the students are exceeding now, that they are able to take the work with them, to do their schoolwork, to get credit for that schoolwork, and we will work on that in the policy, I believe. And I am glad that Dr. Alvarez and the upper administration took a good, hard look at this and came up with the right solution for all of those students that have worked their butt off to get where they're going. And thank you very much to all the coaches, because all of this examples teach students how to work. And if we could only get them to work as hard at school as their schoolwork, then we're seeing straight A's, superstars coming out of Lynn. And I think that's Dr. Alvarez. That's what Dr. Alvarez wants for us. So thank you for coming down, and thank you for expressing yourself.
Oh, one more comment. I forgot one more comment. Let's go Rams.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you to the administration. Thank you to all of you that came tonight. I think you probably know and can see tonight that we are all big believers in the power and importance of athletics, and we are just as committed to our academic mission and in fact see how those two work together. And we have some work to do, clearly, to set this up in a way that works, and also to tackle this really daunting challenge about the attendance generally. And we're going to be counting on all of you to help us with that going forward. And so we appreciate everyone's partnership, and very grateful for the administration for helping us work through it. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And good luck. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Bring it home. Bring it home.
This is yours.
You're welcome to stay. You're more than welcome to stay.
It's your moment. It's your moment. Before you got another hour or two here.
All right. Next item is a request to accept a donation from Bellevue Golf Club of $1,300 to Marshall Middle School to use for special education field trip buses.
And I'm requesting that donation be accepted.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Next item is the vote to approve the Lynn Vocational Technical Institute admissions policy.
Thank you. And I'd like to ask Jocelyn Guzman to please come up to the mic and review Lynn Tech admissions policy. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jocelyn Guzman. I am the 9th grade admission counselor at Lynn Tech. Mr. Gallo wasn't able to be here today, but Mr. Moriarty, one of our vice principals, is in the room. But he says hello to everyone. So for this year, we're still wrapping up our admission cycle from 2022 to 2023 until we open up our new admission cycle in January of 2024. At the moment, we don't have any changes that we want to make in our admission policy. Just to remind everyone, the change that we made last year was the wait list. So we had our wait list sorted based on how the students were going to be received. Like if they came later, they would go at the end of the wait list instead of being sorted by composite score. Now it's depending on the score that they received in the admission process, that's how the wait list is put together. So this year, we saw the results of making that change because we were able to work with the Welcome Center over the summer, and new students that were enrolled in Lynn Public Schools were able to apply and do everything to complete the admission process and then be part of our lottery round that we had in August. And after the August lottery round, if any other students were new to the system, we were able to still put them on the wait list based on their composite score. So we were affecting students, for example, right? We know that we get a large influx over the summer, newcomers, students that are coming in that are English language learners. And so the big reason and the big motive of making that change was because we wanted to make sure that we weren't, that we were being more equitable and that we were given the opportunity for students to be part of our vocational school. So that was the major change that we made. The action plan was that we were able to work with the Welcome Center, but now at this moment, everything that we have in the admission policy is up to date, other than staff names that we had to change. We changed to our new superintendent, and then also we removed Amy Kruniak, the homeless liaison, from the policy as well. I don't know if there are any questions from anyone at the moment.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? All right, what's the will of the committee?
Make a motion that we accept the Lynn Vocational Technical Admissions Policy.
Second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Member Castellanos?
Yes.
Member Capola?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Gately?
Yes.
Member Magnolia?
Yes.
Member Pena?
Yes.
Mayor Nicholson?
Yes. Thank you. We know a lot of thought and work has been into revamping this over the years, and we really appreciate everyone's effort on that. So
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
next item is the dual language grade 3 report card.
And we have interim executive director for MLE, Ms. Amanda Campbell.
Hi, everyone. I'm very cold. I don't know why, so I'm leaving my jacket on. I don't have any presentation or information to share. We followed the exact same process, just replacing the grade 3 standards with pre-K through 2, and these will be used at our 2 dual language classrooms at Harrington and then eventually Connery to reflect the fact that they have different standards in Spanish language arts mostly. But I'm happy to field any questions about that.
Any questions from the committee? What's the will of the committee?
I'd like to move the grade 3 dual language report card.
Second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Member Castellanos?
Yes.
Member Capola?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Gately?
Yes.
Member Magnolia?
Yes.
Member Pena?
Yes.
Mayor Nicholson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Next item is a calendar change for access testing at English and Classical.
And Deputy Goris is going to give you some context to this, and I think Ms. Campbell, again, will share some information. Deputy Goris?
Hello, members of the school committee. So it's that time of year, access testing, which is a test that we provide to our English language learners to assess their language acquisition skills in speaking, writing, listening, and reading comprehension. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has given us a window from January 11th to February 18th, 16th. So it's quite a large window. The test requires a lot of individual staff members to support this testing sequence, which also requires for lots of privacy in order for the students to be able to demonstrate their speaking abilities and listening abilities. With our facilities at maximum capacity, we were reviewing options on how we can best administer the test in order for our students to perform well. In reviewing the high school schedule hours, the state requires 990 hours instructional for students annually. In reviewing the schedule, we are at 995 hours in our schedules for students for the instructional learning time. We're asking the school committee to use that additional 5 hours by providing Lynn English High School and Lynn Classical High School a delayed start time for our non-ELL students, in order for our EL students to come to school, take their test, have enough proctors and space available for them to perform as best as possible in demonstrating their language acquisition skills. That would require for students, the rest of the students, to start late and coordinating transportation for 2 runs at these schools. The Lynn English High School has 39% English language learners, and Lynn Classical at 33%. That is quite a large amount of student body who will be testing on that day, which is why we're asking for this request in the change of the calendar. We did also look at our middle schools. Breed and Marshall are also at the 30% threshold, and we are exploring possibly returning back and asking for a delayed start time, although we are willing and able to somehow coordinate within the building structure some testing because of the way that they're clustered. You may have questions as to why not for the students to be tested while other students are learning. The issue here is access to the learning. The students who are English learners will miss instructional time in content areas while their peers are receiving the instructional time. That then results in inequitable time for our English language learners to be learning alongside their peers. That's the presentation.
Thank you. Member Castellanos.
My question is, so how did you identify this equity discrepancy? After, I think last year the percentage was similar, right? I believe we were at a similar percent. Like, how did we?
So we've actually used this approach for the past several years.
Okay.
I just believe it had been previously accounted for in the calendar and not for this year. So we're just simply requesting to continue to use the same approach that we've used for the past several years.
Okay, I was gonna say it did. Okay, that makes sense. That
Really not a change.
okay.
We're just doing our due diligence and informing you of the change in the calendar that we will then be sharing with our families.
I believe we need to, yes.
I do want to add that it is a delayed start, but it's a full day of instruction for all students.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I appreciate that. I recall with my children going through classical that this is not a new way to approach things. My question is just more technical. What time would the children be starting, and how often would this need to happen?
So we are looking at 2 dates in January, Thursday, January 18th, and Thursday, January 25th.
Okay.
And I believe it would be a start time of 10:30, 2 hours in the morning. But please give me some grace if I don't have that
Absolutely.
exactly.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you.
Member Pena.
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for identifying those, those extra hours that we have, and I appreciate you, looking into finding a solution, and it's really detrimental, and it's important for them to have that space and that privacy. Testing is hard. It's bad enough when you're an English learner.
Thank you. Lynn is in a different position than other districts. We are the largest district with newcomers.
Yes.
And we have increased in our newcomer population, which means we may have to come often to the table to rethink how we deliver instruction in order to ensure that there's equity across.
Absolutely. Thank you, Deputy.
Member Gailey.
I was just wondering, have you talked to the teachers that would be affected by this?
We talked to the administrators, and the administrators took our dilemma back to their schools to identify proposals. They brought those proposals to myself. I shared those with our interim executive director of multilingual education, Amanda Campbell, and we decided on what would be the best equitable approach.
Okay. So the union was okay with this?
I have not directly presented that to Sheila O'Neill.
Oh, okay. I was just curious. Thank you. Thank you for looking into it.
Yeah.
It's an important issue.
Can I just add, we didn't communicate with it this year, but in years past, when we initially designed this approach, we did work with LTU to plan it out, and we have not received any feedback to the contrary in this approach that it wasn't working for teachers.
Thank you.
What's the will of the committee?
Make a motion.
Motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Member Castellanos?
Yes.
Member Capola?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Gately?
Yes.
Member Magnolia?
Yes.
Member Pena?
Yes.
Mayor Nicholson?
Yes.
You owe me a Coke.
Next item is special education compliance.
Thank you. Dr. Tatuya will present and share the update on the document and the percentages. And we actually have some good news for you this evening on some of the changes that have taken place under Dr. Tatuya and now also
Dr.
our-
Colella.
Dr. Colella.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So I don't have a presentation. I was asked to present a report, which I assume that everybody has copies of. And I just want to say I'm really happy with a lot of the changes. I think I had mentioned back when I first presented on this particular data that we would see some movement. Usually during the summer, there tends to be a bit of a slump. You know, it tends to be difficult. I did want to mention two things, though, on the report that I didn't include. One of which Dr. Colella had pointed out to me, and rightfully so, is that these are percents that are rounded. So therefore, for example, when we see rejected 0%, that's the rounded percent, but realistically, at the time this report was generated, there were 4. So, but, you know, so again, I just want to be clear, and I'm really grateful that she had brought that up, because people might come away and say, oh, we don't have any at all. We do have some, but the reality is that these numbers change daily. So that's also why the dates are there indicating, you know, what the percentages are reflecting. And then the other point that I had neglected to include on here was that translation services also tend to impact our rates, because it takes a certain amount of time to be able to have documents translated. So obviously, you know, I mean, if I were a caregiver and English is not my primary language, I'm going to wait until that, you know, IEP comes to my particular language, then I'll complete it. We are working on that with the translation department, like under compliance, to be able to improve that. And also, we've been working on some changes to the systems that we use, like, for example, Easy IEP, which is our special education partner or provider, you know, for system delivery. So we're trying to utilize it more. We're already paying for it. We just haven't utilized all the functionality of it. So those are things that I've been working on that I'm handing off to Dr. Colella. So they do have a translation feature that's included in there, and that'll make it a lot simpler and quicker for individuals to receive the information in their particular native language, which will then impact these particular numbers. So just in the report itself, as you've seen, what I did is that I just indicated the steps that we took in the department to be able to address these particular numbers in terms of communicating, being able to pull data, sending the data files out, and then also some of the linkages, again, that we're working on between Easy IEP and also Power School. So another factor is that since we didn't have those systems communicating and it was a manual process, when somebody would, let's say when a caregiver ended up sending in a request for a special education evaluation, instead of Power School, right, our student information system, communicating and feeding the data into Easy IEP, somebody would manually put the information to Easy IEP. That would then take more time. So again, there were just all these different things that were dragging down the time and underutilization of our system, which we're working on increasing and improving, which are going to improve these numbers even more. But I kind of went off at a tangent back to what Dr. Alvarez was saying. The numbers have really improved. So when you look at our IEP compliance rates overall, they've really gone up in compliance. Yeah. Also, there was a cleanup of the system to be able to freeze those students that are no longer receiving special education or who have graduated. You know, they're showing up in the system, so it ends up, you know, skewing the numbers. But also in terms of the ones that were signed, there was a lot of improvement around there, and the ones that are overdue, that's also come down as well. And I think with these additional improvements, it's going to help. Also, 504 is also an area that we're responsible for. I didn't report on those numbers initially, so therefore I just put down there that they're not reported. But I do have those particular numbers where we're at now, and I'm very confident, just like with the other ones, that as we continue to implement these particular steps, we're going to see a lot of positive movement. So if these numbers are reported on in the future, you're going to see a lot more change in that area, because these actions that we're taking now will continue. I believe that they will. I'm very confident that they will under Dr. Colella, and I think that the team is very cognizant of what those goals are.
Dr. Natuya, could you just state for everyone listening what we were compliant on September 28th as compared to November 27th? We went from the percentages, because they don't have copies of this.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So when we're looking at the IEPs themselves, so the individualized education plans, programs, the compliance rate back in September that I reported on was 68.6%. And then now we're at 89%.
Wow.
Off the top of my head, I believe that the state rate is somewhere in the 90s, and that's kind of like what DESE, is looking for. But still, that's a really large improvement from where we are before, and that really has a lot to do with what I outlined before, which is a lot of the on the ground work with individuals within special education, not only on the administration team but also the chairpersons, and then also the lead special ed teachers, because they're the ones that manage the process, and they're really going there and working through it. Also, individuals like Stacy Pena within the special ed administration going in and, again, updating those students in Easy IEP, so that we're cleaning up that system in Easy IEP. The second one I rejected. At the time that I had originally reported, it was at 0.14%. Again, it's at 0, but realistically, when it was pulled, it was 4, but those change over time. So today it could be 10, tomorrow it's going to be 2, it ends up changing, but the reality is the number is very low. For those where the consent hasn't been signed, so that's the consent to actually start the assessment process, which we can't start the process until we have it signed, that was at 22.13%. Now we're down to 7%. And then also for the ones that are overdue, 9.13, and then we're down to 4%. And again, as I mentioned before, I think, some of these, you're always going to have outliers, but there are some of them that really can be targeted once we're able to have quicker translations, once we're able to have electronic signatures in the system. It'll be a lot easier than having to chase down individuals and get those, documents signed. But once those improvements continue to go online, the connection between PowerSchool and Easy IEP, you're going to see that those numbers are going to continue to trend, but we likely won't see so much of a jump. Right? They're just going to be incremental, because we'll get ourselves to a place where we want to be, and then it's just maintaining it from there.
Thank you.
Any questions? Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, Member Gately, Member Dugan.
I think you did a phenomenal job.
Thank you. Again, it was department, so
No,
it was,
I think the department,
everybody.
but the leadership, and I know Dr. Colella will be as good as you have been to know, after hearing years of people not having their IEPs filled out every year, to hear that they're still in paper copies every year for so many years that I've been on here, to hear that they're now online, that they're communicating, those two websites are communicating so that it's going to get done and is getting done.
I do want to be clear, that switch hasn't happened yet.
But it will happen.
Yes, we're yeah.
So I just am really, so pleased, because I knew you had it in you the whole time. And and I know Dr. Colella has it in her the whole time, and our system is going to be very brilliant, actually, as Dr. Alvarez says. Thank you so much for all your time and effort.
No problem. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Member Dugan.
All right, thank you. So thank you, Dr. Toya. I mean, this is obviously really great news, phenomenal news for the district. So thank you for your leadership, but also our special ed teachers and the liaisons and the people who plan these meetings. I know from experience, and our classroom teachers who need to attend these meetings and take time out of their day to do that. It's not an easy job, and this is very encouraging. And the other people is for Dr. Shorter's team, the people that are entering the data. I mean, that is that can't be easy. That can't be easy to go from what you were describing, easy IEP, enter everything into, or I don't know if it's vice versa, but, manually entering all that stuff. I mean, it's work that, it's really good work that a lot of really dedicated people are doing. So with your leadership, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, and I do appreciate you mentioning that because the original ask, right, was Herculean.
Yeah.
Because for people to think, oh my gosh, but people worked really hard, were really on it. Individuals within, like again, I mentioned Stacy Pena, she was in Easy IEP, trying to update things. So there was a lot of manual work, which will change as these things, turn on, which we're working on with the data team. So I as much as possible, try to express my gratitude to Dr. Shorter and to Matt Cronin and to the others within the data team because it's a really big job. But again, it was really individuals that are like the chair people, the lead special ed teachers that are there on a daily basis on top of everything else they're doing, working on this as well. And we really, have the numbers and they just continue to increase. So thank you.
Great. Thank you.
I had Member Pena, Member Magnolia, and Member Castellanos.
Thank you, Dr. Tuya. I appreciate the presentation. I mean, just the numbers in the report, and these numbers are amazing. We went from 68% to 89%. That's amazing. Another thing that stands out to me is the outside placement. Those numbers has dropped. We're down at 2.7%. We were up at 3.3, a little while ago in September. Now those numbers are going down, and I just want to tell you, this really, I really appreciate the effort from the team, the leadership, and I'm pretty sure Dr. Christina is going to do an amazing job. And this really touches me personally. I am a parent of a student who has an IOP, and this just thinking of the future. Things look bright, and I really like that. I like that. We're moving in a positive direction. We're actually doing what we got to do, and thank you for all the hard work you did and the team. You guys have done a phenomenal job. These numbers are amazing. This is really, really great news.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to say too, Dr. Kallela has already hit the ground running. So it's very gratifying, right, that the work's going to continue. And I have to say honestly that Dr. Alvarez's leadership has been very clear. Because, for example, with this, she spearheaded and said, "This is what I want." And then we then ran, and then did it. So having her clear leadership really helps for, the ship to run smoothly and for individuals to know what to do. So it's really, it's a team effort, but it really comes from the top.
Thank you. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Member Magnolia.
Yes. So I also want to congratulate the department for work. I understand that the substantially separate classroom placements have gone up slightly. And I know that phase of attending to those substantially separate placements is actually quite different than making sure that all of the IEPs are in compliance and the 504s, et cetera. So I'm wondering how the plan for reducing that substantially separate number is shaping up for the future now that we're cleaning up the data and getting that part under control. Because I know that this is a big issue, and I know that's something that we need to bring down significantly. So I don't mean to harp on the one bad number in this entire report that's super rosy, but I just want to make sure we have a plan for that as well.
Yeah, we still have some time, right? Thank you for asking the question. That I don't have the root cause as to why that happened. I imagine it could be because we had some new pre-K classrooms that had opened up, and those tend to be skewed more towards substantially separate, which connects to our TFM results, which I had reported on a couple months ago. And so one of the areas, right, which is CR3, which is around placements, one of the action items that we had in our corrective plan was to conduct a root cause analysis. So, and that was, again, with Dr. Shorter and the data team we partnered with, and they helped to lead that. And from that, we were able to generate root causes and also some action plans. So what I'm trying to get to is that's something that we are working on. It's probably not something that's going to change drastically over time, because realistically, to build, like for example, on the pre-K side, to be able to change the denominator, to have more classrooms with general education students would mean universal pre-K, so you're changing the numbers. Also to have more opportunities for inclusion and for least restrictive would mean more classrooms, which is going to mean, budgeting, staffing, all that other kind of stuff. But there are ways, right, that we can help to provide training and education to individuals that are making those decisions around what those placements are, remind them about least restrictive environment, remind them about those, and those are things that we're doing. So, and it's also part of our overall TFM action plan, including both CR3, which is the placements, and CR10C, which is the disciplinary actions, which we just had a root cause analysis about that. That compliance and Charlie are really leading that part, but SPED has been leading CR3. But the point I'm trying to get to is that we combine both of those together to create a training which has been recorded, that's been pushed out to the district, to all of teachers, regular education, special education administrators, related service providers, which hits those points. So it's kind of like trying to influence a mind shift a bit, remind individuals about, what lenses they should be using when they're making these decisions. So I think there's going to be some change in that over time. And then as we build capacity over years, right, to have more general education and least restrictive opportunities, then you're really going to see it shift. But that's going to be more long-term. So again, it's kind of that's why I was like, do I have time? It's kind of a long-winded response, but I just wanted to kind of tie all those points together because you're really hitting it on the nail there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Member Castellanos.
I want to echo all my colleagues. I'm not going to get into the big thank you and congratulate you guys. That's a significant increase. My question is, when is the state going to come back and review? Like, when are we going to get back to, when are they going to review all of our data?
So they're reviewing data all the time because there are different indicators that we submit into DESE depending upon, what they're looking at that particular time. The TFM cycle, though, is every 3 years. They just had a review last year. So now we're in the point where we're conducting the, root cause analysis, like the results of the action plan, the corrective action plan, and then we have some monitoring that comes up next year. So probably the TFM portion of it isn't going to happen again until we're in 2023, more like 2025 maybe. I mean, don't quote me on it. I'm just kind of pulling it out of my head. But they're 3-year cycles. We're in the middle of one, so it's not going to happen until then. But there's always different data points that DESE is always.
I knew that was the TFM piece where that's the review. That's the one I was thinking about.
Right.
Because as we gather a strategic plan, like for the next few years, I think it would be great to be able to sustain this momentum that we're seeing here.
Right, and that's one thing that I've talked about too, about being able to consistently gather data, and then that's also why I mentioned in Dr. Shorter's team in the data center, we're really trying to work more effectively with them to be able to understand, to be able to know what to ask for in terms of data, be able to analyze it, and then also be able to figure out, like, I'm really looking forward to more opportunities for training within the special ed team about how to utilize Power School, so that way we can just pull the data ourselves, and then once we have that information at our fingertips, we can then make decisions based upon that. So it all kind of connects. But in terms of the TFM cycle, we're in the middle of one of the 3-year cycles right now. And then once we hit the end of the year, we're going to have some data collection, see how our action plans or our interventions have influenced or impacted, the trends that we're seeing, so that we can then figure out, moving forward what we need to do. But realistically, like I presented before, we don't really need to wait for the TFM cycle to do that. We can be doing that anytime. We know what we're going to be evaluated on. We can pull the data and then we can make those changes. It's just getting in that routine of doing it.
Yeah, no, I could see the SPED management system team. All you guys have been, when I look at a few, the folks behind the scenes, I appreciate that because that's actually being proactive, being
right.
Very
that
proactive,
leads to productivity, yeah.
Instead of being reactive, and you're organizing every aspect of our operational needs that we're seeing. Obviously, there was some deficiencies that were pointed out by the state, and you guys are taking corrective action. And I believe compliance is probably involved as well, right?
Yep.
Attorney Gallo and that collaboration. How's that going?
Yeah, even today, right? So that for CR10C, which is around discipline, today we had a root cause analysis. That was today. That was yesterday. Dr. Shorter, Matt Cronin, the data team was helping to lead that. So we're constantly like in partnership. There was a TFM progress report that was due today. So, Charlie helped to get his piece, I typed up our piece, put it in the system, you know what I mean? So it's like, we're always working in concert to be able to respond to these, but we're working on a way to be able to be, to your point, proactive. But that takes time, and we need to have the right systems that are in place, and those are the things that we're building right now to be able to get to that point. So then it just becomes part of what you normally do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Member Capola.
First, I hate to see you leave. I wish there was something here that you would be interested in staying, but you gave us a great 6 months and made a lot of change, and I know you're giving Dr. Alvarez, a lot of credit too, but the leadership that you showed us and the help. I had letters from parents. I know I forwarded you letters that how happy people were, parents were, and us at the table, we get a lot of calls. But it has totally quieted down, for calls in regards to special ed parents and even staff people, that are in the special ed situation. So whatever you're pursuing, I wish you the best of luck, and I thank you for that time that you were here.
Thank you. I really do appreciate it. And I appreciate the opportunity, right? And I've learned a lot, and I've made a lot of really phenomenal connections. And Lynn is a really magical place. So I have no hesitation with the leadership under Dr. Colella, because I know that it's just going to continue. So
I agree.
It's in a good place.
Yep. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you all the members for the questions, and great work to everybody involved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jr.
Next item is a repurpose of the Breed Media Center into classrooms and repurposing of a classroom into a media center.
Deputy Ruggiero?
Yeah, so similar to Pickering, when we talked about the Lynn Community Health Center repurposing some of the locker room. In this case, it is the Breed Media Center being repurposed into classroom space, and then one classroom being repurposed into a media center. If you've ever been in Breed, the media center that currently is there is enormous. And it's just felt that the space could be utilized in a much more effective way without losing space to have a media center. And so the classroom spaces at Breed are decent size, and we can utilize a classroom to make a media center for students and staff to access. So we're looking for approval to repurpose that space.
Rebecca.
Still moving.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Castellanos?
Yes.
Member Capola?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Gately?
Yes.
Member Magnolia?
Yes.
Member Pena?
Yes.
Mayor Nicholson?
Yes. Ratification of votes taken in the policy subcommittee meeting. Member Dugan.
Okay, great, thank you. So on April 25th, one of the things that came out of that policy subcommittee meeting was to relook at our graduation requirements. I think the recommendation of the chair now would be to table that discussion because some things came to light today that I think we need to look a little closer at. That obviously doesn't mean that our graduation requirements are changing in any way. Graduation requirements will remain the same as they are, but just to take a deeper dive, that would be the reason we'd want to table it, so. I don't know, do I need a motion for that, or?
Yep.
Okay.
I'd like to move that we table the graduation requirements, policy IKF, and send it back to the subcommittee for contributions.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay, and then November 14th, we met as well. A lot came out of that meeting. So I just want to start by thanking Dr. Magnolia for all her hard work with the policy subcommittee. We got through, I know, Mayor Nicholson, you had started the ball rolling, but we ended up getting through the whole thing. So that's work I'm really proud of, and I know Dr. Magnolia is very proud of it as well. So I just want to thank her personally and publicly for that, so thank you for that. And then just everyone involved with that. Dorothy Presser has been enormous. So lot came out of our November 14th meeting, so I do want to kind of take you through it piece by piece here rather than throwing to you all at once. So first was Section C, and this should all be in your packets. Section CHCA, and that was approval of handbooks and directives. Not a lot is, well, it's sort of a piece that's changed. The piece we took out would be to remove to have school committee approval. The reason for, two reasons for that. One reason is it kind of frees up time in the summer for Attorney Gallo to work on the handbooks and the administrative team to work on the handbooks. And the other part of it is it's a bit redundant because we do vote on policy and these handbooks do need to follow the policies that we're voting on. So that's what we did with Section C, so I was hoping for a motion to approve that.
I'd like to move that we approve Section C as changed by the policy subcommittee.
Second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Member Castellanos?
Yes.
Member Capola?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Gately?
Yes.
Member Magnolia?
Yes.
Member Pena?
Yes.
Member Nicholson?
Yes.
Mayor Nicholson?
All right, and then the next one was Section E, three parts of Section E in particular: EFC, Universal Free School Meals, EFD, School Nutrition, and EFE, Civil Rights Compliance, for child nutrition programs. Yes, for child nutrition. I didn't have my glasses on. Sorry, child nutrition programs. Again, a lot of that was just wording. Attorney Gallo worked on that one a lot, and again, it's in your packets. The wording that we've changed a bit. So again, just looking for a motion to adopt the changes to Section E.
I'd like to move Section E as changed by the policy subcommittee.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Member Castellanos?
Yes.
Member Capola?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Gately?
Yes.
Member Magnolia?
Yes.
Member Pena?
Yes.
Mayor Nicholson?
Yes.
Okay. Next one up is Section I. The parts in particular are Section IHAM, which regard health education, Section IHAM-R, which would be a policy we were hoping to rescind, because again, it was a bit redundant when we were looking at the manual. IHAMA, which is parental notification relative to sex education. IHAM-1 and IHAM-E would be rescinded. INJDB, if I'm moving too fast, please just speak up. INJDB-S, Internet Network and Email Use and Device Care Policy. And then finally, IJND, Access to Digital Resources, and, oh no, not finally, this is finally, IJNDD, Policy on Social Media. The one I do want to highlight that I think would be in particularly for public consumption, I guess, would be parent notification relative to sex education. There's been state laws now that we have to do all of that, and so the policy that we would rescind is just coming out because we're required to do it now based on state law. So again, go ahead.
I'd like to move Section I as amended by the policy subcommittee.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Member Castellanos?
Yes.
Member Capola?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Gately? Yes. Member Magnolia?
Yes.
Member Pena?
Yes.
Mayor Nicholson?
Yes.
Okay, and then next was Section J. First was JF, school admission. Next was JICH, alcohol, tobacco, and drug use by students prohibited. Again, a lot of that was just wording and kind of technical things. This next one, though, I do want to stop and talk about a little bit because I do, again, I think just for the public, this is one I think that would be of high interest. JJICA, athletic eligibility, high school transfer policy. Thank you, Member Magnolia. Yep. Transfer policy. So there are some significant changes to that I do want to stop and kind of highlight to the committee. But before I do that, there was, again, talking to Attorney Gallo, a little bit of wording we need to address. So, Member Magnolia?
Yeah, so I want to move Section J, but amend specifically JJICA to add the years to add the words "in the current year" to the policy. And I'm happy to read out what that first bullet point should read. What, should I do it now? Okay. Any student who transfers from one Lynn High School to another will be deemed ineligible in the current year to participate in the sport they played in the previous year. Okay, so I am moving section J as amended by the policy subcommittee with that specific change to policy JJICA. And then Member Dugan will talk about it.
We got a
Yeah.
second, and then we can do.
And then we'll
discussion.
just,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Second, and then discussion.
All right, so again, for public and again, for the committee, because these are significant changes to a policy that has come up quite a bit over the years. So the first thing, and I'll just kind of summarize, because I know you guys all got this in your packets. The first thing is that rather than when a student transfers and they're playing a sport, rather than not allowing them to play a sport at all. The one thing would be if they, for example, if a student transfers from English to classical and that student was a basketball player, in that current year, they would not be able to play basketball. However, they would be able to play other sports. So the one sport that they would not be able to play would be the sport that they're currently playing. The reasoning behind that, again, is just to kind of avoid, kids, jumping ship, because of a team that isn't doing so well and, across town, the other team's doing better. We want to avoid that as much as possible, but we also don't want to, have consequences for children that, they can't play sports at all. So they would be allowed to do that. So again, an example would be if a student was playing basketball, that student would be able to run track or maybe, play field hockey or whatever it is else and pick up another sport. Another part would be we are removing the appeals process, which is a significant change, or we're hoping to at least. And the reason for that would be the exemptions. So if you guys could all just kind of take a look at, if you have those in your packets. The exemptions are believed that it removes the necessity for an appeals process. The appeals process, a bit controversial. It kind of puts our athletic directors and our administrators maybe in a bit of a pickle at times. So we're hoping to get rid of that. So those exemptions are all listed. I'll just go through a couple of them. An exemption would be change of placement based on special education criteria, change of placement based on acceptance to an application-based secondary school that doesn't have an athletic team, change of placement based on a homelessness or foster care, transfers resulting in disciplinary removal or as an outcome of an investigation for Lynn Public Schools, change of placement based on a court order, change in residency if that it proves to be a hardship, traveling from one school to the other. And then, obviously we'd need some proof of that, driver's license, utility bills. If a student is admitted to an application-based high school from a waiting list, so that would be if a student's at classical, plays football their freshman year at classical, and then gets off the waiting list for tech. That student would be able to play football at tech. And then student transfer due to changes in the programs. If, for example, if a school no longer offers some shop at tech, and that student decides to transfer to classical, there wouldn't be a consequence in terms of sports. So if that student played, baseball, as Nevin does, the student would still be able to play baseball. So as you can see, that is significant changes, and it is a change to a policy that we've had in place for some time in the Lynn Public Schools. So again, looking for approval of that. Or if any questions, yeah.
And then Member Castellanos.
So my question is, so we're going to eliminate the appeals process if we implement these qualifications.
The exemptions, correct, yep.
Who's going to determine the qualification, or is there going to be a panel, or, who's going to oversee that to see if that person does qualify?
So it's the belief that these exemptions are fairly concrete, and they're fairly easy to prove, so I don't know if we'd need a board to prove those things. I don't know if Dr. Alvarez.
That's
you wanna
correct,
add a
and that is basically the purpose of this, to have some guidelines where we don't have to have
Right.
appeals necessarily, and to have more of a labor-intensive process, but rather guidelines where students know very clearly in advance if they move from one, what will happen, right? Which I think this sort of wondering won't happen with the way it would be clearly delineated in this process.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the question.
I just want to add that the principal and the athletic directors are the ones who review
school site.
those exceptions.
Yes, thank you,
From the
Deputy Gorse, yes.
Transferring school into the new.
Correct.
Correct, but they would not come to the superintendent's office any longer for appeals of a review of the principal's decision.
Right.
But these, if I could just add, these exceptions are more student-centered.
Correct.
And geared to things that are outside of the control of the student.
Mm-hmm.
So the student is not penalized for these things.
Exactly.
Member Castellanos.
So for the exceptions, I guess moving forward on an exception, do they need a unanimous principal and athletic director approval? Who's going to be, are they collaborating together? Is the athletic director and the principal like working together to vet?
So the principal and the athletic director always work together, but if you're asking if there was a difference in opinion, the principal would supersede an athletic director.
Correct.
And if there's discrepancies between the two, there's no appeal process after. So once the principal makes a determination, we're not going to superintendent.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. And I think the discrepancy would lie in the accuracy in the documents
Yeah.
and the accuracy of those things. And so if anybody has a question and then there's some suspicion there, then, it's not a clear exception.
I'd also add that principals are very good about going to their partner deputies if there is a question about something, or there's a disagreement, or a difference in what the ultimate decision should be. A principal would typically call their partner deputy to talk that through as a thought partner, probably ask to, if it is about documentation, probably ask to say, can you look at these documents with us? They would bring the deputy in just as a thought partner.
And I'd also like to add, just somebody that personally knows people that have been through this. I think it removes just people's opinions too with these exemptions. The people that I know have been through this do have hard feelings, because either they're denied or saw other people that weren't denied. These exceptions do, in my mind at least, make things concrete and, it's this or that, so.
I wasn't.
Yeah, I remember Gately.
I wasn't done.
Oh,
okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I wasn't finished.
Oh, sorry.
I was.
No, it's all right. That's all right.
My last comment was around the MIAA, so I don't know if we've reviewed what their standards are in terms of what this policy. Okay.
Athletic Director Newton is a member on the board of the MIAA, and he's gone through all of this, and we did have him involved in all of this. So yeah, I am confident that the MIAA this is going to be compliant with all their regulations.
Thank you.
Member Gately.
Okay. So a lot of our policies have been changed, and they went to the Mass Association of School Committee, and a lot of our policies were more procedural. So, how will we replace, a procedural? If there is a problem, and there's no agreement between the athletic director, and then it goes to the principal, how do they know those are the steps they take? Can we add procedures to all these things so that people know what the direction is that they should take for these changes?
So, we are working on a staff handbook as well as then there will be a principal handbook that has a lot of information about everything. And certainly we could look to, and it will have whatever procedures go with that policy.
Yes.
And so that potentially could be put in. But to Member Dugan's point, these exceptions, if you read each one individually, they are really factual things. It's this or that. And so the only thing that I can see in looking at the exceptions would be if there's a question about documentation and not necessarily, like if it's a change of placement based on homeless or foster care, it's clear there.
Yeah.
Right? You can't dispute it. It's really, the only one I see is possibly the documentation of like the family moved. The residence one.
Yeah, validity in the documentation, right?
But we absolutely, the plan is to have procedures linked to policies in a handbook so that everyone is clear.
Seeing no further discussion, roll call, please.
Member Castellanos?
Yes.
Member Capola?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Gately?
Yes.
Member Magnolia?
Yes.
Member Pena?
Yes.
Mayor Nicholson?
Yes.
Okay, and then our last one is Section G, which involves all our personnel policies. So that was, we went through it. We made some, I wouldn't say significant changes, but we did make some changes in language. And again, that's all in your packet. So
I'd like to move Section G as amended by the Policy Subcommittee.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Member Castellanos?
Yes.
Member Capola?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
yes.
Member Gately?
Yes.
Member Magnolia?
Yes.
Member Pena?
Yes.
Mayor Nicholson?
Yes.
I just want to state publicly for the record that Chair Dugan did a phenomenal job keeping track of all this, that Mary did a phenomenal job keeping track of every tiny little grammatical change, and that the MASC people did yeoman's work in looking at literally everything from pronouns to periods to, confluence of various differences and different policies. And the idea that this policy manual is now completely updated, maybe it's just me, but I'm thrilled. So thank you, Chair Dugan, and you deserve all of the applause.
No applause. Thank you, Mary. It's phenomenal. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I want to echo that because both of you have done tremendous work. Chair Dugan, Member Magnolia, the MASC team, Mary, Charlie, Attorney Greenspan. Whenever I think about this, I think about our friend as well, who we started with this with, Attorney Myhouse, and just all the thought and care that goes into these documents that are not always a thrilling read, but
Page turners.
Oh, no, I love it.
We did a lot of laughing at those committee meetings.
you have
I will say.
you have to. But clearly, they're incredibly important to the people that they affect, and it is only fair to our roles and our constituents that we approach that with this in mind, and you all have done that, and we're very grateful for it. So thank you.
Mayor Nicholson, do you mind if I just?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if Dorothy Presser's watching, but she's retiring, so congratulations on your retirement, and thank you for all your help.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, yeah, congratulations.
Congratulations, Doris.
Because of us.
She's done this for many districts, not just Lynn, so.
But I'm sure Lynn is the new cutting edge.
Oh, absolutely, we're the shining
Right?
stars,
Yeah.
yeah.
Ended with a bang.
Good. All right, great work. Communications and information.
Thank you. So we have a facilities update just in terms of also, I wanted to highlight that these were funds that were originally set aside from ESSER 3 for the modulars, which I'm going to share what we have reconsidered. So recently, the executive leadership team reassessed the decision to invest in modulars for Cobbett and Connery. And there's a number of reasons why that occurred. There's a significant space issue, as you know, and constraints in our existing school buildings, and we need to look at offering additional seats at the secondary level, grades 6 through 12, right, prior to those at the elementary school. And so we're also working on realigning curricular programming and identifying the effective use of those instructional spaces. With the input of the Inspectional Services Division, in the mayor's office, our team identified the following schools and spaces that need either repurposing and or renovations. The first one was voted on this evening, which is Breed Middle School, and that was the only repurpose item. That will Breed will have 5 more classrooms built in the current space designated for the media center use. The proposal is for room 2E01 to be repurposed to a media center, and the approximate cost of those upgrades is $1.5 million. Now, these are renovation, the next 3 bullets are renovation items. Fect O'Leary will have a roof repair, also the consideration of some electrical upgrades and ADA accessibility to include elevator repair, concrete ramp, and a lift, with the approximate cost of the upgrades being 1.5, possibly higher, 1.5 million, maybe in excess of that. Briarcliff, which is Pond View, will be renovated to accommodate 6 classrooms and additional space for Teams program currently housed at Lynn Tech. The approximate cost of those upgrades is $1.5 million. And then, foreseeing that their funding permits, we are looking at, the ISD team is looking at AC and heat split units at Shoemaker and Callahan, and the approximate cost of those upgrades could potentially be $1.75 million. And then the last bullet on this list is really for instructional materials and enhancements in science and STEM education, lab equipment and upgrades, and the approximate cost of $750,000. And so, again, these were funds that were designated initially from ESSER 3 funds in our last year's budget to go ahead and purchase those 2 modulars at Cobbett and Connery. And in using these funds, we would have to have all of these projects completed by September of 2024.
Member Capola, Member Castellanos, Member Magnolia.
On the Teams program, is that the one that is housed out of the Boys and Girls Club, or is this different?
No, these are classrooms that we currently have in the annex.
Okay, and do they utilize any of the programs in Lynn Tech?
These are our most medically
These are medically fragile students.
Okay.
That are not currently interacting
Okay.
with the general ed population.
Okay, thank you.
Member Castellanos.
We have to have these funds spent by the fall. Is that what the
ESSER 3 and September of 24.
Okay, and the estimates on each of these projects, was that created by our
ISD.
ISD? Okay. Just because the cost of construction and it just keeps going up and up, and
Yes,
it's just
we're concerned.
Are we concerned about? Do we have enough? As my concern is, do we have enough? Is 1.5 enough?
Yeah.
Like over 7 million.
So it's a great question. We're all concerned about the escalating costs. Part of the idea here is that you have some contingency built into the plan. So these projects are prioritized.
Yep.
So if the Fect O'Leary projects end up being more, we're not going to get as far on the AC heat split units. You see that if funding permits. So that's how we're addressing that. Of course, those will still continue to be important projects, and we'll have to be working to identify other ways to fund those.
So will ISD be the one kind of doing the project management of all these? So we'll have ISD oversee the completion of these projects? Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Member Magnolia and then Member Dewey.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the timeline, and the reason I'm asking this question is because the upgrades to Pickering didn't start until almost the beginning of the school year. And so, the amount of noise generated from the installation of the elevator and the ADA compliant bathroom did significantly disrupt classrooms. I mean, that was going on as students were in the building trying to learn. And so in order for this to happen by September of 2024, you know, especially if you're talking about what's happening at Breed, like that's a pretty significant disruption for students who are learning in the adjacent classroom. So I just wanted to hear what you were thinking about the feasibility of this timeline, given that at Pickering, the work could have begun in June, but didn't until almost the end of August. So I know that the ESSER funds have to be spent by September 24, but it doesn't seem like we always plan out the timing of these things particularly well. And knowing that might be a little bit of our Achilles heel, and knowing that we're under a deadline, what kind of guarantees do we have that we are going to plan out the timing of these particularly well, given the classroom disruption that they will entail?
So we have done a significant amount of work with ISD in planning this. These are priority projects because they understand the time constraints under which, that we're facing to spend the expenditure of funds, and our accountability, obviously, to the federal government because it's considered a grant.
Yeah.
So again, these are at the top of the list of getting them finished, and they have. We considered a number of things, and these were the ones that were most feasible within the timeline because they were things that did not require major wait times.
Got it.
For unlike some of the other projects, right, that have parts of them that do require a 6 or 8 month waiting period for just a part or something to come in.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Can I add to that? I know that, I know Mike Donovan was here. I know from conversations with Mike Donovan, for Breed, for example, they're looking the state still has to approve everything. If that all goes well, the hope is that work will begin in January. He has expressed multiple times that, second shift, weekends, vacations, like they're going to capitalize on times that are not when kids are in the building. Will there be times that it will be in the building? Potentially, if we want to get this done. But he is cognizant of that and is making every effort to do it at non-school hours.
Member Drew.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you. I think the creative use of the space is great. My one question would be the Teams program moving to Briar Cliff. Accessibility within that building. I know there's stairs. There's are we equipped for the children to?
Yes, originally that facility was, I believe, an adult daycare,
It was, yeah. Mhm.
and so it's already equipped for some
Okay,
of those things. It's just some of the updating needs to happen.
Yeah. And then in terms of like outdoor play space, I know Sluice Pond is there, which is great to look at, but I don't know if we want the students getting in there. Is there a space where they can, get their yayas out and the seam outside?
There is a space on the side of the building, and and it's also fenced, which would, again, continue to be fenced.
Right.
And I just want to add to that as well that we brought a teacher, a couple of therapists over to the space so that they could see it and we could talk through. And we had a subcommittee prior to that where they gave feedback on what would this space need for it to be successful. They were so helpful, these staff members. But when we went to visit, they actually talked about, the physical movement and the loss of the hallway and the annex, and how would they get that there. And we actually talked about making, in the ground level, making a path that, like a track almost, that internally they could use, but then there are doors that go to the outside and extending that outside as well, so that the students felt like they were doing something. There was a path they were following. And then, as Dr. Alvarez said, there is a side yard that we talked about making a space where staff and the students could access.
Would play equipment be involved with that, or is that out of the realm of possibility right now?
I think that depends
Obviously, that's an
on-
expense, but
Yeah. An expense.
Yeah.
We did have 2 administrators from DESE also meet us there with the SPED team and evaluate it carefully and explain all of the rules that we, basically what we needed to do to make sure that in our application of use of the space, but that certainly that it was appropriate based on, how we were going to model it on the inside. So.
Great, thank you.
And all great questions. I would just add, I think one of the exciting components of that project is not only is that I think going to end up being a great space for that program, it also
Absolutely, yeah.
creates some capacity for us at Tech.
At Tech,
Yeah.
right, great, thank you.
Member Gately.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention how excited I am about the science and STEM lab equipment and upgrades. Woo-hoo, finally. We're going to get this. The appropriate cost of the upgrades, $750K, could help our teachers get real hands-on learning. And that, I have to mention it because I just am Lorraine Gately, the science teacher. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And lastly, the superintendent's report this evening. So with the holiday season upon us, I'm thrilled to share that the palpable excitement and energy that permeates our school district. The festive spirit is evident in halls adorned in our schools, colorful decorations, including the recent incredible display at Lynn Tech, and the enthusiasm radiating from our students and staff. It is heartening to witness the season's joy, fostering a sense of unity and community within our schools. The season provides an excellent opportunity to unite as a school community and celebrate the diversity that enriches our learning environment. I'm immensely proud of the generosity and goodwill demonstrated by our students, reflecting the true spirit of this festive time. But amid all that holiday excitement, teachers and leaders continue to push forward to improve instructional practices using data. In addition to the instructional leadership team at each school, we're engaging a district instructional leadership team to support the needs of all learners with a continuous improvement model. Over the past months, our school district has undergone some transformative changes in the systems and approaches, resulting in a positive impact on our students. And as I think you saw this evening with our SPED percentages, that is one of the testaments to exactly how engaged we all are and how proud we are of the progress that we're making. These changes support, implementing innovative, I lost my place. Over the past few months, our school, so here we're implementing innovative teaching methods, integrating technology in our classrooms, and a renewed emphasis on personalized learning have collectively enhanced our educational experience. These changes support diverse learning styles and foster a dynamic and engaging environment where students feel more motivated and connected to their studies. But as we think about that, we also are exploring curricular programs at the secondary level, such as a STEAM Academy, including data science, artificial intelligence, international baccalaureate, biotech, environmental ag science, and gaming and animation. In January, we will also launch Rosetta Stone, an online software that allows learners to experience real-world scenarios, interactive activities, and audio from native speakers for language acquisition in 25 languages. The platform will be available to all K-12 students, parents, and all LPS staff. As a result of these positive shifts, we hope to witness increased academic achievement, improved student morale, and palpable enthusiasm for learning, affirming the significance of adapting and evolving our school systems to meet the changing needs of our students. Additionally, there will be a launch of Centering Youth Voices. That is the LPS Student Superintendent Advisory Group and the Superintendent Teacher Cabinet to include teacher voices in issues that impact our student learners and teachers. We are working diligently to release an approach to learning in themed education in January of 2024 to provide our students with an innovative world-class 21st century education. In closing, I want to highlight the exceptional level of student engagement in various festive activities. Again, I know there was a lot of competition at the festival over at Lynn Tech, and we're so proud of all of those who participated. From spirited holiday concerts that are now taking place and plays showcasing our talented actors and musicians to expression in the arts that adorn our classrooms, our students' active participation. The commitment of our educators to infuse the curriculum with seasonal themes has further ignited our students' curiosity and imagination, making learning both enjoyable and meaningful. It is heartwarming to witness the collective efforts of students and teachers, creating an environment where the joy of learning intertwines seamlessly with the joy of the holiday season. We look forward to the month of December to celebrate together as a school community.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no further items on the agenda,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.